Florida's in the house. There you go.
So when are you musician boys going to come up with an IoT Coffee Talk theme song?
You already have one. Stupid jingle in the beginning.
There's a little opening music.
Yeah, we can come up with something. That would be easy.
Yeah. Something put together by Sid and Marty Krofft, something like that.
There you go. There you go. Hey, look at all these guys. Hey, Steve, good to see you. Olivier, it's been a long time.
You too.
Where the hell have you been?
Hiding.
I know. Hey, dude, I love how you represent IoT Coffee Talk on your own show. That's so cool, dude. Wearing your...
You like that? I don't wear it when on the IoT Coffee Talk, right? Because it's useless. I need to wear it outside of Coffee Talk.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Great. So we're changing shirts now.
Make sure you wear the shirt when you're out on the highway hitchhiking. Yeah. That's the best way to get notoriety.
That's good advertising. That's our target
market. That's pretty sure that's the place you're going to get in.
Those who pick up hitchhikers. That's kind of our target.
That's our target.
Especially if they look like Rob on the road.
Yikes.
Yikes. Yeah.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to IoT Coffee Talk. You remember, take us seriously at your own risk, which these days is really high, apparently, if you've been following the market.
High risk.
Yes, and don't take anything that we say seriously at all, because we're just having fun. And in terms of like any suggestions about investments, definitely don't listen to Rob. I'm just saying, Rob. And remember, we do this for the love of the kids. We have a charity called Elevator Kids. We're always on a constant Jerry Lewis fundraising
telethon going on here.
That's right. World's longest telethon.
Yeah, for any of those of you who believe in helping kids in underserved and unserved communities, we're the charity to talk to and contribute to. We do this in conjunction and collaboration with T-Mobile. Provides connectivity, but the donations that you make are used to purchase devices. So again, kids in underserved and unserved communities can participate in our digital future, and we can bridge that digital divide. And
devices?
Yeah.
Devices like a pocket PC? Is that what you mean? Devices?
What's
about Zunes, pocket PCs?
Okay.
PCs.
Oh, or should we get them laptops? I don't know.
Does that
Chromebooks?
Netbooks.
Ooh, a netbook. I remember that had a window of time.
Yeah.
Oh, paper and pencil. Also, I remember Olivier working on some advanced data replication from paper and pencil to SQL Server. It was crazy. Yeah.
Those were the days.
Yeah.
So, are you bringing this up because this is the 50th anniversary of Microsoft? Is that the deal, Rob?
Today is the 50th anniversary of our favorite company from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
There you
That's
go.
Right. That's right.
Interesting Photoshop of the three of them together today.
You gotta love that. I watched the little video they were doing together, playing around with CoPilot on an iPhone. That must have been, where's CoPilot on Windows Phone?
Whoops.
Whoops.
Could have been.
Right.
Well, in a parallel universe, CoPilot is running on a Windows phone. We just need
That's
to
right.
get into this
That's
one.
right. Yeah. Can you imagine?
Multiverse.
Can you imagine just being a bunch of college dropouts hanging out in Albuquerque with Walter White, and saying, I don't know, should we start cooking something or should we make software for this Altair PC? I don't know. And I'm sure you saw that Bill Gates released the source code to the BASIC that he wrote for the Altair. So that's kind of cool in case you want to check that out, create your own BASIC compiler for a computer with a bunch of weird switches and lights on it,
Well, Microsoft was kind of the original big tech company. Remember, I mean, big tech these days, we always think about, Meta and Google and all these companies. And back in the day, if people remember, especially back in the 90s with the antitrust stuff, Microsoft was the Death Star. The Death Star. Before big tech was a thing, and now big tech is the thing controlling everything. And Microsoft actually is not really in the headlines. And when people talk about big tech and who attends, Trump's inauguration and blah, 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 Microsoft does a good job staying out of that headline these days, which is cool.
That's a good point. You're right. But I guess the biggest notable thing that, is that Windows ended up beating out OS2, and that's how we were all here today.
Well, yeah, that was a turning point in humanity, no doubt.
It was. It was. It shows that you don't, I think, Leonard and I were sitting there in the audience earlier this week with Lip Bhutan, the new CEO of Intel, and he just said, the best product always wins. And guess what? He is so wrong. So many.
I picked up on that. When I saw that show up on his slide deck, I just went,
it's like, no, dude, that's not true.
Come on. Yeah.
Windows 3.1 was battling it out against OS 2.1.
Dude,
it wasn't even close. But, Windows 3.1 was the VHS to OS 2's Betamax. So there you go.
I think in recent tech history, there's only one technology that was actually better that beat out its the front runner, or its peer. That was Blu-ray. Because remember HD DVD or whatever that
HD DVD. That's right. Yeah. Which would have made more sense. It was compatible.
Well, yeah, but Blu-ray was a better technology and had more capacity, better performance, and
Sony spent a lot of money to push through Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And Sony had a lot of heft to it because it was also a movie studio. And I remember that battle.
The question is, did Blu-ray prevail because it was the best, or did it prevail because it had Sony behind it? And when we talk about technologies like best technology wins or no, it's actually it depends on who's backing them and who's injecting the right funds in there, right?
Right. But if it wasn't for that, then let's say at that moment, the less capable technology or the lesser technology prevails, right? So I mean that's a great point. But
do you think a good technology will organically prevail or can organically prevail and overcome what the industry is, like reality of it, right?
It could, right? Like Linux in server, right? It can have it can tune into a certain economic dynamic that allows it to scale in terms of adoption and market.
Yeah, well, Linux, the paid versions, yes, the paid versions of Linux are prevailing, not the full open source. I mean, it's because they're backed by companies that are making money out of it and are supporting it.
But that's you need those companies to make them enterprise grade, right? And then basically life cycle management, the whole thing. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like there is no open in and of itself. and this is probably a great topic of discussion for this episode, is not intrinsically a superior or better or what have you, right? You need to make it a particular grade for a particular industry or application. Right. And that's just the sad fact. And that's where I think, even this whole discussion around open anything, just becomes so twisted, especially open source, where people just really get twisted about this stuff. And, even with AI, somebody has to make that thing enterprise grade for that industry or application. This is something that people are slowly realizing as they're pushing all this crap out there. Eventually, they're going to have to rein it all back. Enterprises, fortunately, have this gate, which is called a POC, go, no go into like friggin' pilot.
Your go, no go for launch.
Yeah, it's basically
we got green lights across the board.
And an organic filter for pushing some pretty dangerous junk out there into the world, right? Thankfully.
Well, it's interesting, Leonard. This is I agree. It's a prescient topic because we're talking about the 50th anniversary of Microsoft. Originally, the architect of the original closed ecosystem, right? Which is the Wintel ecosystem, which is what they built. And there's other examples of very successful closed ecosystems. I would say ARM is another one, which is a closed ecosystem based on license only. And sometimes they can be very impactful in lots of industries and be very satisfactory. That being said, there's also open architectures that have their own value propositions, like RISC-V and other. Linux is a great example. I mean, Linux as an open platform, has become ubiquitous, and there's lots of variants and distros and innovation, but it's really, I think, enabled lots of innovation in lots of different form factors. So where does the arc bend, toward open or closed? I don't know. It's hard to say, but there's been really big examples out there in tech of very successful closed ecosystems that have been very satisfactory, and some open ones too.
Yeah, NVIDIA, Apple.
Apple's the most closed ecosystem in history.
Closed. Super closed.
Yeah. They're so closed that it made Microsoft look open.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, Win32 APIs. Anyone can write an app.
Anybody can write to it. It's open standards, open ISA for cards that you're going to put in there, and
so it's an interesting ecosystem.
It is. You talk about weight behind a company. It's not just Windows beat OS2 or something else. It was even before that. The Mac was revolutionary. Copying the Alto and all the windowing and stuff like that. But what really happened throughout the 80s and into the early 90s, this command line operating system called DOS was kicking everybody's ass. How the hell did that happen? But it did.
Yeah.
There were more business applications for DOS, and so Mac seemed like the obvious winner. It was so easy to use, but it didn't.
I think there's an element of enterprise and consumer markets there. So in the consumer market, I think closed ecosystems do really well because they solve a problem, like Apple and other things where you put it in, you turn it on, you hit the button and it works. And that's what consumers need. On the enterprise side, no enterprise wants to get locked into a single vendor, right? I mean, that's a bad strategy to have single source. And so you always want multiple devices from different companies, and different apps have to run it, so that sort of drives a more open architecture on the commercial side. And the consumer side, it needs to come in a box, and you turn it on and it works. Don't call support. That's don't
call support.
That's a closed ecosystem model.
I tell you, Pete. The one thing I always wanted that I never got. I was always hoping to get a 32-bit and then later a 64-bit version of DOS that was multi-threaded, preemptive multitasking. All that stuff, but it's still DOS, and it's for all those restaurants that are still using DOS on their little deals and stuff like that. I don't know.
Are there still a lot of restaurants using DOS on their little deals? Because I'm not seeing that as much.
I think they've switched to Toast on their handhelds now.
Yes, correct. Exactly. You just kind of tap to pay now, and you get your chicken teriyaki, and you're on your way, man.
Absolutely.
No muss, no fuss. No muss,
yeah, and all those handsets that all these business and things commercial use, they're custom handsets, and they're all based on, wait for it, Android. And why is that, Olivier? Because the embedded team decided to punt on CE and just let it go to hell in a handbasket.
Not the embedded team. Sinofsky saying that Windows 8 should be everywhere and that we did not need Windows CE. And he killed the biggest one of the biggest Windows CE deals with Ford that tried to force them to move from Windows CE to Windows 8 and ended up being QNX.
Windows 8. Don't get me started.
Just shoot me.
Don't get me started.
Don't get him started, man.
Yeah, I know that's your best buddy, right?
Let's get it started. Anyway, yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. Lots of forks on the road, but I was actually I mentioned this CASPA event. There was a guy, Keith Whiten from Tense Torrent, did a really good talk about open architectures versus closed architectures and the role for both to exist depending on the markets. So it's an interesting topic. But I mean, to your point, Leonard, is like at the end of the day, everything needs to get commercialized. It needs to get all the bugs need to get squeezed out of it. All the features need to get locked in. It needs to be supported. And open sometimes gives people permission to ship a lot of kind of rickety stuff. That's not good.
That's a great name for a software company.
RicketyStuff.com.
Rickety stuff.
I love that. Well, there's another player in the 90s that we don't talk about as much, but boy, their CEO, Scott McNealy, he always talked about open standards, open interfaces, open everything. And that was Sun Microsystems, and they had their moment in the sun, especially with the .com thing, because all the VCs said, you got to buy these multi-million-dollar servers. I guess the only legacy left from them was Java. But boy, they made great workstations and servers in the 90s.
Yeah, they did a pretty good job with Java as a community-driven process.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. They nailed it. They nailed it.
A good one.
Yeah.
And you know what? I hate to say it, but I have to. At least Java just kind of stayed steady through all these years, because I certainly remember when we've talked about this in Windows Phone WTF, how we would jerk around our developer community at Microsoft and go from Win32 to universal Windows apps, and we kept changing the model over and over again. Java just kind of said, we just added features to Java. It's still Java. And I think
there's still a Java 1 conference, by the way. I think there's still a Java 1 conference.
That's right. And so there's a lesson there of that kind of steady state consistency, just incremental features, where we kept trying to reboot the whole developer platform ecosystem multiple times. And we thought that developers would stay with us, and we were wrong. So sad.
We were wrong.
Yeah.
Developers have checked out, just like Bill and Steve have checked out on this call.
I'm just listening to it. I mean,
we just have to sell the shit that you talk about. That's it.
Well,
I think it's extremely interesting, right? I mean, I've seen so many companies do the whole, open source thing, and they run into that challenge, right? So you see them have two versions, right? Their open source version and then their enterprise level. And the enterprise level takes away, hyper functionality that you really need in order to get you to that paid subscription.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think companies that have done that, rather well, it works. Open standards, I think, are different.
Yeah. Standards are different.
Open standards, I think open standards are necessary, from an interoperability perspective. The challenge that you run into is, how did you implement it? Because there's no rules to that. It's just be compliant. And then there's self-compliance. But then there's a secondary business that says certifications. We'll certify that you are in line with everyone else. And then there's plug fest, and it just starts to spiral out of control. It really does.
So, here's the open source version of our product, and here's the one that has security that you have to pay for.
Well, yeah. So, hey, let's talk about the thing that actually apparently is on everyone's mind in the IoT community, especially in the US, is all these tariffs. And Steve, you haven't said anything other than hi. And you are probably as close to gadgets and seeing, the impact and the temperature in the room about this stuff. But what do you think about, what's going on? What's the sentiment about these tariffs and some of the policy changes that have been taking place that are changing? I mean, I can only imagine it's changing the economics of IoT. Where Rob and I were talking about, there's going to be a renaissance, and all of a sudden,
oh wow,
yeah.
What do you think, Steve?
Maybe next time.
Well, I can assure you that the distributor sold a boatload of Chinese stuff last month. I can tell you that. I mean, prior to the tariff scenario. So anything that wasn't nailed down, from a camera to a sensor to anything, was sold last month big time before it and stored up. So
wow,
that's a bit. But, you look at QuickTel, right? QuickTel owns 45% of the IoT module market, and they have moved to Eagle Manufacturing in Ohio, outside of Cleveland. They actually took the entire QuickTel manufacturing machines, wafer machines, and brought them to Ohio on containers. And this month they're producing their first 1 million non-Chinese manufactured U.S.-made IoT modules with with Qualcomm chipsets in them.
Well, and not only that though, but they're also manufacturing in San Jose.
Yeah, well, yes, but now it's all moving to Ohio, because that's what their official, Eagle is their official group, and they interfaced with Finite State for all the vulnerability data of everything on the firmware and on the chipset that's on the module itself. So they're looking at vulnerability data and any kind of botnets or any other programs that are there, in addition to Somos ID, which I've introduced you guys to before. So now all those modules coming out of Ohio have been passed a security smell test for any kind of vulnerability or any kind of exploits, and is made in the U.S. market. So they were ahead of the game. They actually made that program work because of all the negative tones around having a Chinese module inside U.S. manufactured products and development products. So that's really the first company that's actually doing it. San Diego is antennas like Tau Glass and some of the other ones that have been doing all U.S. based ones instead of Chinese antennas. So if you were behind and you have not made the pivot, and you thought that Vietnam was going to be a good place to go, or Singapore was going to go, or Taiwan was going to go, you screwed up that one too, right? Today. But I think you're going to. It depends on where we see Amazon go with products, where any of the home consumer products go. If those prices continue to go up by 20, 30, 40% in order to make up those tariff margins, then you're going to see consumers not buying that stuff because they're used to, Walmart cheap. And that's going to change that consumer market in a big way. ISC West, you look at what was going on, the ADTs and all the other companies, the Matter guys are worried as well, looking at the prices that are going to, affect how they sell their products. So I do think that on the consumer side, it's going to be affecting really, really quick if they have to pass that margin on, that tariff margin on.
They don't have a choice. Not only is that going to happen, but U.S. manufacturers are going to do the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
This is the whole conversation around, do certain people understand how tariffs work?
Yeah, exactly. I'm getting into the goofiest conversation still about. It's like, look, you can't have a sensible discussion when you don't even know the basics, and that's one of the biggest problems with this tariff discussion and debate. Right? Is it good or bad? It's just
but we've been dealing with Brazil for decades, right? So I'll go back to the BlackBerry days when I had a contract, for Johnson & Johnson in Brazil. I was sending multiple boxes of broken out BlackBerry pagers down to Brazil to reassemble them to avoid the tariff tax.
Yeah.
That was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So are they smarter now, requiring you to manufacture in Brazil in order to sell into the Brazilian market? So you got a 20, 30-year model that Brazil's been following. How wrong are we to be in that same kind of model? But the problem is that you're putting in these tariffs now, and it's going to take 2 to 3 years for fabs and companies to start to build in the U.S. What the hell happens between now and then?
Well, you have the same thing happening with NAFTA, right?
Yeah, agreed.
If you pass NAFTA, you're going to hear a sucking sound coming from south of the border. I'm just doing my Ross Perot impersonation.
So, Steve, do you think manufacturers will start investing in or is there also going to be a wait and see type of move that will be, hey, it will take me 3-4 years to build a new factory there instead of waiting for the next administration to come in and nix all these tariffs and go back to something more reasonable? Like, if I were an investor, I was like, should I invest in a company that is like waiting to see what's going on, or the one that is like crazy reinvesting locally for maybe labor will not be cheaper in the US than or it will become, and that's going to be, weird. But
you're on the right track. I mean, Olivier, there has been a big surge in contract manufacturing facilities and partners in the U.S. Right, they have been over the last several years building up their capabilities from New Jersey to Ohio to Oregon to Idaho, and I think those companies did the right thing in being able to get the quantities out of the other end of the manufacturing facility of U.S.-made assembled products and parts. So yes, you will pay more for those products. But if you're trying to do business in the government, if you're trying to do business in the military, and certain now some of the larger enterprises that are putting these boxes, edge boxes, and sensors and buildings are into U.S. buildings, you're going to pay more for that stuff, right? So, I think we're going to have to flush out what the right pricing is based on some of these changes in U.S. made products. Unless he realizes that he made a mistake with Vietnam and Taiwan and Singapore with the tariff sizes. If you look at the EU, right? So think about everything that's been made in Lithuania and Czech Republic. Those guys are, Teltonika being the number one out of Lithuania, out of Vilnius. If they're at 10%, they're going to be 25% less than anything coming out of Asia.
Right.
So now we're moving our manufacturing to Europe and Eastern Europe to get to here for IoT products.
Sounds like the manufacturing needs to all move to Russia because apparently they didn't get any tariffs. So
Yeah.
But you know what? That was as Leonard said in the beginning, the conversations that was brought up twice in the last 24 hours. Where was Russia on that long ass laundry list of percentages?
In somebody's back pocket.
And where is the fact checking on all these numbers? Like I was trying to look at this, like this, they saying
the numbers are open source.
29%. Yeah, they're open source. Yeah, 29% from Europe. I'm just like, I was looking more closely, and the average is 1%.
Right,
tariffs on U.S. imports, not 29.
I think they just used ChatGPT to create that chart.
I believe he's also counting VAT. Is counting other types of taxes that has nothing to do with import, and you're just like, what the fuck? I mean, like it's where is that math coming from, and why is no one just going through that list and saying this is wrong?
People are saying it. It's just
kind of.
I think the solution is going to be. I think Steve, you mentioned it. I think the idea is like container ships that have factories on them that are sitting in international waters. You manufacture there.
Pete,
oh my gosh, you're a genius.
Boom.
There you go.
Boom.
Oh my god.
So is it time to invest in companies
offshore rigs? I like that idea.
There you go. Let's do it. Let's get some old container ships.
As the rightful entrepreneurial knucklehead of this group, I love that idea.
Yeah,
I think I can get that thing funded too.
Yeah.
So remember
tariff-free zone. Tariff-free zone.
At the beginning,
international waters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of sending the skiffs of drugs from the mothership, we're going to send skiffs of PC boards and boxes of IoT.
There you go.
Until Doge catches wind of it.
Oh shit! Here we go.
That's true.
There's one in every crowd.
Yeah.
Pirates.
But you know what was really funny about that chart? It said discounted tariff, like you're getting a deal.
That's true. They got a deal.
You got a deal.
Like 99%, not 25.
It was going to be 20 or 25% across the board. I dropped it to 10% because I'm kind. I gave you a deal. I'm your friend.
You do the best Trump impression there.
So back to the tit for tat, like with Olivier here. Olivier, when I think of tariffs, I think it on a product by product basis between countries, not a blanket thing.
Agreed.
And so you might know this. What do you think the tariff in France is on American wine? It wouldn't surprise me if it was high because they want to protect their wine industry. I'm assuming it's huge, but it doesn't mean everything is huge. It's just, again, it's like use a scalpel, this whole deal about, we're starting a trade war and oh my God, retaliation. If you're doing it, you could say, well, actually the other country started the trade war on these products and we're just trying to be fair or whatever. Yeah, to level it out. And so, but I don't know the answers to it.
In my research about the tariffs and reciprocal tariffs and so on, I learned that the U.S. is actually charging a 25% tariff on pickup trucks imported to the U.S.
I read about that. Yes, that's like an old one. Yeah, something related to chickens.
Did you discover that India was imposing a 25% tariff on Harley Davidson?
What? Well, then we're going to tariff the hell out of their motorcycles.
Exactly. Yes. I know that.
What do you mean?
Let's see how much we make.
To ride an Indian motorcycle in the United States. Okay.
With your whole family on the motorcycle with you, which is pretty normal in India, right?
Yeah, that's a normal thing in Asia still.
Everybody's piled on.
Here's the question that I had, though. Irrespective of anything else, in the digital age today, almost every single thing that you have has a piece of silicon in it. Huh. Where does that come from?
Most of it from China. Yeah.
Silicon Valley.
Look,
some polluting.
This is
landmass.
Yeah.
This
is the problem. Now, we had the CHIPS Act that tried to address the shift of chip manufacturing from basically Taiwan to the United States, right? And that was an impossible lift and shift aspiration to begin with, right? $50 billion is not even close to shifting the economics and then lifting all that legacy back onshore. This is even a bigger issue that we're talking about. We're talking about the entire friggin' electronics industry where you look at it in its entirety, almost all of it goes through China. And so how are you going to dismantle all of that and then restructure it? And that's the crazy thing. And, your point about QuickTel and what they're doing and onshoring here in the US, there's two reasons why you do that. Number one is just for access, right? But then when you think in terms of pricing and cost, it's still cheaper in China. And so a lot of these companies, unless it's an access problem, they're not going to onshore. And
it's a political decision as well. I mean, they could not sell to the
federal
government.
That's what I'm saying. Access.
Right? It's a supply issue, but it's a quick to market issue. But it's definitely a political issue. It has been.
But like what I was saying, the access to market, the reason why a lot of Chinese brands, especially chip and module makers started having a huge issue actually in the US is because of the geopolitics and then the security concern. Right. But what's really interesting is how you've outlined how QuickTel has somehow successfully managed to address the security stuff, provide transparency on shore so that their products actually can be sold. But that's one thing. The other thing is then the economics of it, right? And that's a separate thing for everyone else and other. And for IoT, I can totally understand. It's one of those. It's basically a commodity at the commodity layer of this. Electronics Uber value chain. For higher order stuff, higher value stuff, I think it's going to play out completely differently. I think a lot of it's still going to stay in China because it's still butt ass cheap, and China can still make things cheaper, and so can all these other countries where you'll have to jack up the tariffs really high to change the sourcing decisions. So I don't know. It's going to be.
I'll add another piece of that. OpEx versus CapEx.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of discussions in the last couple of weeks, especially last week at the Channel Partner Show in Vegas, of even if the tariffs cause the price of the equipment to go up, we are still moving towards a very OpEx related marketplace. So if that means your monthly charge per something goes up by that, most people are not going to care that much because it's such a minor thing on that.
Relative to the OpEx, yeah.
Wow.
But if you're an OpEx company, basically you're providing these services.
Correct.
Then it's a hit on you.
Yeah, margins.
Your end customer is saying, "Hey, that's not my problem."
That's right. Correct.
Right. But I will say, so QuickTel. So I mean, look, Patrick Kwan is that's a different dude, man.
Yeah, I agree.
Truly, Patrick Kwan is like infinitely a genius.
I agree.
I mean, from day one, when there were only maybe 30 people there, I was talking to Patrick, and I kept watching him and kept watching him. And then I noticed the relationship between QuickTel and Qualcomm. Qualcomm would put out new modem chipsets.
Yep.
And they would have bug after bug after bug after bug. And QuickTel would fix them.
Yep.
And then it would take Qualcomm a little bit of time to actually catch up. Yep. This happened over the years. Patrick started making the move over to North American manufacturing in various ways.
Yep, correct.
Because of that.
No, I agree.
He was years ahead of everyone else in doing that.
No doubt about it. And Norbert and Peter Fowler and those guys being able to execute on that strategy, it's phenomenal. I agree.
And then that was the other end of it, right? You saw Gemalto, Centurion, and all of them basically get consumed. QuickTel ate them up. Yeah, it was like, come on over here and we're going to take care of everything. And I'm like, this is amazing to watch.
But I do think that we're going to have some kind of relief for Korea, Taiwan, Vietnam, Singapore, in those areas, because we told people to go from China to those countries for manufacturing of IoT products. We told them. They did it. They followed what we told them in the rules that we were set up. And now we're screwing those countries on the tariff, on the amounts of tariffs.
It's not.
It's just wrong. It's just absolutely wrong. I mean, you encourage them to do it, and then you turn around and.
Well, the U.S. government encouraged, and from a policy perspective, guided or sort of nudged along companies to do that. It has. I don't think it has any. Well, it does have something to do with the target the countries and markets, but. Yeah. We have to look at it properly, right? It's like tariffs. It's thinking that, China or anyone else is going to pay for it is not right, right? The U.S. government charges a tax when that thing lands in the United States, right? And clears customs. Yeah. And that's where if you can't have that basic, you can't establish that basic understanding, then the rest of the conversation is totally twisted. And then you have to scratch your head about the policy. It's like, well, if your assumption and understanding of tariffs is wrong, then everything else is going to be wrong after that, right? But that's why I wanted to make sure that we're at least on the same page there, because some of us might not agree. Some of us might think that, the other guy pays for it.
It's going to be interesting to see where the IoT distribution numbers are over the next couple of months. If this thing is in concrete, doesn't change, numbers don't change, negotiations don't change, then I think the IoT hardware market, it's going to be interesting to see what the numbers look like.
Well, you mentioned OpEx, right? So here's the thing that I think it's probably the pink elephant in the room. You have to be drunk and with a bunch of your friends in a club somewhere in Seoul, Korea, in a basement to bring this thing up. But it's the service.
So let's bring it up to everywhere in the world.
Yeah. No, see, I have plenty of experience in that, so I can do it totally sober. But it's the service surplus that the United States has, and how that can become. Like there's a lot of folks that say, "Oh, there's nothing these countries can do to retaliate." It's like, well, maybe not on the good side, but definitely on the services side, because the U.S. Because you brought up OpEx.
Yeah.
The U.S., more than 80% probably of our economy is service oriented. And these other countries can cut off the tap pretty quickly. And it's easy to do that. And the payment is easy. There's already, regulatory momentum to shift some of that because, in fact, the United States runs a huge service surplus against the rest of the world. Because that's our economy. And so I think this is, and unfortunately, and I get it, why there is this discourse around repatriating manufacturing and all this other stuff. But, the thing is that those conversations eventually just degrade into this question of, well, okay, who's going to assemble iPhones in the United States? And where are you going to find the workforce to do that?
Wait, and how many people are going to pay $1,800 for one?
Yeah.
Which is what their projected price after tariffs.
Well, like Dave Chappelle said, he's like, I don't want to make the Nikes, I just want to wear the Nikes.
But this notion that there isn't any other recourse for the rest of the world is absolutely insane. If these countries decide to now really ratchet down on the U.S. in terms of service, and we're talking about the metas. I mean, advertising. Yeah. That's their business. How easy is it just to basically dismantle all of that stuff globally and then just destroy their business? Google, same thing.
And by the way, in the EU, they were just waiting for an excuse to do that because of everyone being tired of being ruled by the US for everything. Now here's the excuse. It's like, hey, so we have to do something about it, guys.
And I think that's the next ball to drop. It's like, oh, so you thought, okay, you're going to play this game? We're going to play this.
Now it'll be Baidu everywhere, and WeChat.
Well, I mean, and even this morning, as fondly brought up was data centers and how this is going to affect data centers and cloud services.
And that's why
it brought up on CNBC this morning.
Yeah, Microsoft backing out. Yeah, Microsoft backing out on data center, AI data center investments. Right. So all this stuff. I mean, you have DeepSeek plus this stuff. All these things stacking on top of each other. We're going to be looking at a really goofy year.
But wait a minute, aren't we really just, I mean, for me, the way that I look at this, the people that are not impacted are those that have the money.
Of course.
Right. All right. So isn't this just a reinvention of trickle down economics?
Oh, God.
Oh, ouch. Oh, you bad. Hey, Bill.
Hey, I'm just the messenger. Wow. I'm just the messenger.
Bill,
I think
of us.
I was skipping over that, but
we're down and we're going to be out. Don't do that.
There's a really good column from Thomas Friedman on the New York Times I posted on my LinkedIn about kind of the gravitational pull toward China as a center for kind of tech moving forward.
Yeah,
because of a lot of these tariff moves, and so if people should read that, I think it's interesting because now these new trading alliances are building out, like South Korea and Vietnam and China and Thailand are getting together to create their own trading blocks.
Yeah, and that
cut their dependencies on the U.S. and
that becomes a result beat of what we're doing now. We're screwed.
Whoops.
No, it is. It's not if. It's
happening.
It's happening. And to Olivier's point, the past probably, I don't know, like decade, ever since the Cambridge Analytics thingy happened and people start to realize what kind of business model Meta had, and oh, hey, these guys are becoming massively valued companies because of ads, basically, and the brokering of data. They have been instituting policy that will start to clamp down on basically the business model that has floated most of U.S. tech, which is the advertising. I mean, Google. What does this company do? They make money off of ads. You kill all that stuff off, these companies will collapse very quickly if the world does that in unison, kind of like what has happened from the good standpoint, right? With the Trump administration instituting basically dropping a tariff grenade into a world globe, right? And basically blowing everything up.
I would call it more of a tariff.
They can do
drop
that
the
on
tariff deuce,
services then.
tariff grenade, but that's a different
tariff grenade.
Tariff deuce. Well, the market's only down 1,600 points today, so it'll be fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
This is fine. This is fine.
Yeah, you gotta have some pain for the gain, Pete.
Yeah, that's what some people keep telling me, and I'm saying, good luck with your portfolio.
Oh, don't even look at it. Fucking don't even look at it.
Yeah.
Here I am turning 70 and I'm thinking about retiring, and now I'm like going, fuck, I'm going to have to work for another 10 years.
You're going to have to take a Walmart greeter job, man.
And I can tell you guys and the industry don't want Steve Brummer around for another fucking 5 or 10 years. I can tell you that right now.
Well, we don't want you to quit IoT Coffee Talk. We always want you on here talking crap, dude.
That's right. We'll always have IoT Coffee Talk, right?
While I build that manufacturing ship.
Yeah, that's right. Get that container ship going.
Well, there's the option of a space, right, as well, right? Moon
True.
or Mars.
Manufacturing in space. Yes, that's
there you go.
That's what Blue Origin's plan is, actually.
Yeah, I know.
With the orbital reef that they're trying to get going.
Yeah.
Anyway. No.
I'll be definitely dead by then, Rob.
Yeah.
The space is not gonna be international. It's gonna be American, right? Because Musk is taking care of that.
There you go.
That's true.
Yeah. There you go.
Really? You had to go there?
You had to go there.
Yes.
Yeah, you go there.
That's my way of not being too angry and aggravated. It's like just making stupid jokes like that, right?
That was the same thing that I just said with the trickle down economics.
Yeah, both of you guys.
Yes. Remember, it's the Laffer curve, and it's supply side economics. Okay, get it straight.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh my bad.
Gosh. Yeah.
You're bad.
Yeah, I agree. I put it this way: if this thing continues, CES next year is going to be a very interesting place.
Oh my god!
All those consumer products, everything that's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, LG had a banner month last month. I mean, LG, Samsung, Sony, Best Buy numbers were freaking through the roof last month, and you wonder why. I mean, I'm a victim. My wife bought washer, dryer, dishwasher, refrigerator, stovetop.
Good Lord.
Last Friday.
All
Yeah.
all from LG.
Right.
Yeah, because of course.
Yeah, I was thinking of
that.
buying a crap ton of Apple stuff before everything goes up like 90% or some crazy stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's probably a good time to start thinking about just hoarding.
Stockpiling in the bunker.
Stockpiling.
Go that far, but you got to think about it. I mean, if it holds, and your Apple laptop / appliances / cars, imported cars, Mercedes had an unbelievable month last month.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, my friend's Mercedes dealership outside of Detroit, they sold 18 Mercedes in one day.
Really?
On Saturday. Oh yeah, because they're not made here.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a temporary thing, though. It's a little temporary bump.
Yes, yes, it is, Pete.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
In other news.
And in other news.
Yeah. So, lots of stuff going on. And
we didn't even talk about Intel, Leonard. You spent all that time at
I was there with Rob. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah.
I mean, we did kick it off a little bit. We talked about Lip-Bu Tan and his whole comment that the best product wins. Yeah. Yeah. But Rob, what did you think? What did you think about this? Was your first vision, right? And
it was my first vision. Yes. I thought, well, there's tea leaves that you can read. So the event took place at the Virgin Hotel in Vegas, off the Strip, formerly Hard Rock Cafe Hotel. Total dump. But they Virgin came in, trying to put a little lipstick on the pig. So it was a smallish event. It was at a kind of third or fourth rate hotel. They kind of screwed up on the food.
Wow.
I don't know. I'm just kind of, it was like the kind of event you have.
Telling it like it is.
It's the event that you have when you're kind of tightening your belt, as a company. It's like, well, we really can't afford to do this, but we're going to do it because we need to make sure that people think we're still relevant, And yes, the band that they got was The Fray.
I saw that.
And so this is a band that had one album and then we haven't seen them in 20 years and then they're back. It's kind of mellow-ish music. Leonard but they're good.
They're like Train.
They're like Train. No, they're not as good as Train. The highlight of The Fray playing was that after they finished their set, then they're like, we're going to do one more song. And they played Simple Minds. Don't you forget about me. And that was the highlight of the whole event because they sounded great. And so I thought I was in the 80s. And Leonard looked at me. He's like, Breakfast Club, you know? Yeah. And so that was probably the highlight for me. Lip-Bu Tan, he did his, it was kind of his coming out. He did the keynote. Yeah, he's kind of a soft-spoken, understated guy. Humility is the word I would espouse with him. He talked about his upbringing in Singapore. He did play power forward in basketball, so I know Mr. Brummer will appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so he did a lot of basketball.
How old is he? Can I recruit him?
You should be able to recruit him, yeah. Actually, yes, he would be on your team. Is he 69?
No. He's younger than that. I think he's like 67, 65, 67.
Well, then, I'm in 65, 70.
Yeah.
There you go. I think he could play. Yeah. So he kind of talked about family, which is kind of like when you're watching the Fast and the Furious movies and he's talking about family. And so there was a lot of that. And we're gonna be customer focused. Kind of that glittering generalities, right?
So what is your thought around them moving forward? I mean, do you feel confident in his direction as to where the company goes? And
it feels like it's the same direction that Pat had them on. They're sticking with the foundry. Their 18A is on track for 2 nanometer. And so obviously their only customer really is themselves initially, but that's probably what they expected anyway. And so that seems like it's on track and we should start seeing stuff coming out the door at the end of this year. Leonard, what's the deal? Like Panther Lake and some of the, they feel like energy efficiency wise, they're now on par with ARM. Does that sound sounded like?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of roadmap, let's put it this way. The 5 nodes in 4 years ended up being sort of not a really too aggressive, basically, kind of like the whole fab build out, right? So 18A, they consolidated on 18A. And that looks like it's going well. The first product, the Intel product coming off of 18A, which is, that's the foundry process node, right? That's equivalent to nanometer, like what Rob mentioned. That Panther Lake is going to be that product, the Intel product that's going to ramp that whole thing, right? And once Intel can prove that they can actually reliably deliver on 18A products off the 18A process, then probably you're going to see some external, companies or customers come in and start to engage. And there are companies that are kicking the tires on it right now and keeping an eye out on it. But I think they've lost so much trust, which is one of the reasons why they seem to constantly be apologizing for stuff throughout the course of the conference, that they need to prove themselves again, probably over 2 generations. So 14A is going to be, coming in the following year, and then you'll start to see things start to ramp up, and that's when they're going to hopefully change. Hopefully they establish confidence with 18A. And then with 14A, that's where things get really interesting, because that's the first node where they use that first process technology that leverages what's called high NA EUV, right? That's the next generation of the ASML technology for lithography. And once that happens, TSMC is going to look like they're, instead of ahead, like maybe right side by side with Intel. So, that's very promising.
We heard a rumor in the last couple of days, it's still unsubstantiated rumor, that TSMC is going to do a JV with Intel around what Leonard's talking about. And they're going to take a 20% stake. This is total rumor right now. Look on the interwebs, you'll find it.
I know.
Leonard, back to the disclaimer. Get going again. Let's close out with the disclaimer.
Yeah. Well, no. It's a rumor. So everyone, don't even give this thing any credence. But you can make comments on a rumor, right? It just freaking doesn't make any sense. But hey, if this is why they brought Lip-Bu Tan into Intel, okay.
The guy's got good pedigree. Obviously, he knows how to run companies. He's been very successful. You're right. He was very humble. He basically came right out and said that Intel's in a bad place and sounds like a turnaround kind of job, right?
Well, maybe he's like I dub him the humble hammer. He seems a really nice guy as he whacks you up across the head with a big old,
fist in the velvet glove.
Yeah,
the velvet glove. And so, like lots of companies that have to do a turnaround, what do they say? Oh, we're going to go back to our core, right? We're going to get back to our core business. He made it clear that they will be jettisoning non-core businesses. And so wait and see on that. I run into some people I knew that work at Intel, and, most of them they spend every day looking over their shoulder because, they whacked 15,000 people last year. And now with the discussion of getting rid of more divisions, people are like, I guess more people.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting times for them, but then, hopefully they'll get into a better spot. I mean, rationalization, focus. I mean, those aren't new things. Maybe
you're right.
Bring them in to make it happen. And,
and what did he say more than once when people are talking about technology, this, technology, that? He kept trying to pull people back. He goes, I got to get our balance sheet in order. Yeah. And that's actually job one for him, is they need to fix their balance sheet because they're struggling, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So the financials.
Because again, net new sales will show that they're on the right direction.
Yeah. Hey, man, you know what? The product groups, maybe DCIA has work to do, but I also think they probably are measured on a let's say unfair. They're measured unfairly in terms of whether they're successful or not. It's like benchmarked against NVIDIA, but man, their client group has done very well under extraordinary fire, because Qualcomm's X series friggin' had a huge impact. It woke everybody up, right?
Yep.
It woke everybody up in the industry. So yeah, I know that everybody was trying to play the X series down. But X Elite, man, it's a nice. The AI PC world, it is still the benchmark. So,
Yep.
In a lot of
it's a good point. They launched Xeon 6 and they've launched Gaudi 3. We talked to a lot of different folks that are doing stuff with Gaudi 3, as a competitor to what, initially we were thinking, is it a competitor to the H100? But maybe some people were saying, oh, no, it's maybe competitive with the H200. I don't know.
Yeah. Basically Hopper. But, here's the bottom line that everyone should know, that massive model building is different from inference. Your hardware architecture, your system architecture looks different. Totally. It's not something that's apparent to a lot of folks at the moment, but that's what I got out of GTC plus Intel. And so my short message to everyone is the CPU is not dead, not by a long shot.
That's right.
This whole idea that accelerated computing or GPU-oriented computing is going to take over the world.
No.
I would like anyone who says that to go and talk to an IoT person.
Yeah.
About this thing called the brown field.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you will stop that talk with a quickness.
You wanted fast applications, I give you RS-232 serial ports. Good luck with that, folks. Yeah, nothing's happening. We're still living in the past. Might as well plug in your old mouse into the serial port. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
PS2 mouse.
That's right. Well, PS2 mouse, that was a big advance, actually. That was serious stuff there, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, they kind of talked about you could use Xeon for what? For doing AI, large language models, under 20 billion parameters. They felt like that was a sweet spot for them without, because what is it? Is it AMX?
AMX, yeah, the accelerator matrix math extension. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they think under 20 billion parameters, you can just use Xeon without an additional accelerator.
They're jumping on the SLM bandwagon. So, but yeah. Okay, I think we're up on time here. So, who wants to take us out? Rob, you want to take us out? Yes, I'm rolling but down the highway. Anyway, as I travel through beautiful Oregon, I'm about to do my Al Pacino. That snail donut from Oregon. If I was half the man I am, I'd take a flamethrower to this place. Anyway, yeah.
Should have said it after you got out of the state.
Baird, man. Yeah.
They're tracking you down right now as we speak.
Exactly. They keep pulling me back. Yes, heading southward towards lovely California through Oregon here. Great show. A lot of deep tech happened here, Managed to talk about tariffs without people really losing it on each other. So that was pretty good. I'm impressed, very reasoned, calm, God, we dropped a lot of knowledge in this. This was good. It was good. And to wrap it up again, happy 50th birthday to Microsoft. That's pretty cool. Who would have thought that Microsoft would be around for 50 years based on a command line operating system? But here we are, Turns out 16 bits is all you needed to win. So that's all good, right? Much love. Much love. Definitely contribute to Elevate Our Kids. Go to the website, elevateourkids.org. Buy some merch. We got great merch. You can get Coffee Talk merch, or you can get Elevate Our Kids merch.
There you go.
You can donate. Again, we're getting laptops and internet connectivity to kids so they can do their homework, so they go to school remotely. We're all about helping the kids, lifting them up. We're all about lifting people up, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
We will see you on the other side. Sayonara, folks.
See ya.
Adios.